It all began with a storm, not the kind that rages outside, but the one that quietly builds within, twisting your stomach into knots before you even realize why. Emily had been acting strangely, but not in a way that immediately screamed betrayal. It was more of an unsettling feeling, like something was off, yet easy to dismiss as overthinking. It was the little things, an unusual number of girls' nights for someone who never truly enjoyed her friends' company, a newfound preoccupation with her appearance when she used to be content rolling out of bed as she was. And the worst part? She wasn't even trying to be discreet. The night everything unraveled was supposed to be ordinary. I was meant to be out of town, heading for a business trip. Flight booked, bags packed, even kissed her goodbye that morning before heading out. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. Before I even reached the airport, my flight was canceled. I could have called to let her know, but something in my gut told me not to. Instead, I just let things play out. I arrived home around 8:30. The house was dark, too dark for a place where someone was supposed to be. Yet, Emily's car sat in the driveway. The moment I stepped inside, an unshakable wrongness settled over me. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the atmosphere shift? That was exactly what happened. The air carried a scent that didn't belong, not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. A faint trace of cologne I didn't own mixed with the soft, lingering aroma of wine. I stood in silence, listening. A faint shuffle. A quiet laugh, hers, but hushed, restrained, like she was trying to keep it from being heard. Then came the sound that made my stomach drop, the distinct creak of our bedroom floor. Without thinking, I moved. My heart pounded against my ribs, making each breath feel shallow and forced. I strode straight down the hall and pushed the bedroom door open. Empty. The bed was untouched, the lights off, but the air still held the unmistakable scent of wine and someone else. Another sound. The soft click of the bathroom door shutting. I had no idea what I was expecting, but it certainly wasn't Emily stepping out alone. She froze the moment she saw me, eyes wide, blinking as if I were a hallucination. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice unnaturally high, too bright, as if nothing about this situation was unusual. As if she wasn't standing there wrapped in a silk robe I knew she hadn't put on for herself. "I live here," I replied, watching her closely. She let out a nervous laugh, running a hand through her hair. "God, you scared me." I didn't respond. Silence stretched between us, thick and heavy, waiting to be broken. Her gaze flicked toward the closed bathroom door. "Who's in there?" My voice was steadier than I felt. Her head snapped back to me. "What?" "No one." I took a step forward. She instinctively took one back. "Emily?" My tone was sharper now. "No one's in there," she insisted, but this time her voice wavered, and that was all I needed to know. I reached for the handle. She grabbed my arm. Wait, but it was too late. I pushed the door open. And there he was, standing frozen, looking just as guilty as she did. My best friend. The room seemed to shrink around us, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. He stood there, shirtless, only his jeans on, belt half undone. His eyes locked onto mine, wide and unblinking. Neither of them spoke. Because, really, what do you say in a moment like that? My mind short-circuited. There was no slow realization, no gradual understanding. Just a raw, instinctive reaction. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because if I didn't, I might have put my fist through the nearest wall. The sound made Emily flinch. Jason, my best friend, finally moved, running a hand through his hair like this was some minor, uncomfortable misunderstanding. "Look, Manda." I turned to Emily. "You want to explain this?" She folded her arms across her chest, her posture already defensive. Defensive? As if I was the one who had done something wrong. "I don't owe you an explanation." Something inside me snapped. "You don't owe me an, are you serious? You're standing here, half-dressed, with him, Oh, don't be dramatic." She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. As if I were some fool making a big deal out of nothing. "Nothing happened," she added. I let out another sharp, humorless laugh. "Nothing? So he just magically appeared in our bathroom? What, did he get lost on his way to the kitchen?" Jason opened his mouth, but I cut him off before he could say a word. "Actually, you know what? No. Don't even bother. I don't want to hear a single excuse." He shut his mouth. "Smart." Emily sighed, exasperated, like she was the one dealing with a problem. "You're acting crazy." That did it. That single sentence ignited something white-hot in my chest. "I'm acting crazy?" I stepped forward. "You told me you were home alone. You have him hiding in the bathroom. You lie straight to my face. And I'm the crazy one." She scoffed, arms still crossed, refusing to meet my eyes. "I just needed space, okay? Space." The word felt hollow. Space with him. I didn't trust myself to say anything else. My hands curled into fists at my sides. my pulse hammering in my ears. The only thing I could do was turn away, grab my keys and walk out. I had to. If I didn't leave at that moment, I wasn't sure what I might do. Behind me, her voice rose. "Where are you going?" I didn't answer. "Fine. Leave," she snapped. As I stood there, frozen in place, her words struck me like a slap across the face. "Run away like you always do." The accusation hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I turned abruptly, my mind reeling. Run away. That's what she thought I was doing? My voice trembled with anger as I repeated her words back at her. "I work 10-hour days to keep this house running. I endure your moods, your endless complaints, your constant nonsense. And yet, I'm the one running away." Her lips curled slightly, as if ready to fire back, but she had nothing. No comeback, no justification. Jason, who had been standing in tense silence, took that as his cue. He reached for his shirt, which was still draped over the counter. "I should go," he muttered. I shifted my glare toward him, my voice like steel. "Yeah, you should." He didn't bother to offer an apology. He didn't even try to make an excuse. Instead, he slipped past me and disappeared out the door, leaving the room charged with unresolved tension. Emily, as if this were just another ordinary night, sighed dramatically and brushed past me. She poured herself a glass of wine, her movements casual, indifferent. My stomach twisted. The sheer audacity of her behavior made me feel like I was staring at a stranger. "I don't even know who you are anymore," I muttered under my breath. She took a slow sip of her wine, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of the glass. There was no guilt, no remorse, just that same detached coolness. "Maybe you never did," she said simply. I stood there, staring at her as if she were an intruder who had somehow made herself at home in my life. And maybe, in a way, she was a woman I had known for years but had never truly understood. Emily took another measured sip, completely unshaken. There was no shame in her expression, no sign that she felt any regret for what I had just walked in on. I waited for an apology, an explanation, even some fake tears. Anything that would make her seem remotely human. But instead, she tilted her head and did something that made my blood boil. She smirked. "You look like you're about to explode," she observed, almost amused. I exhaled sharply through my nose, forcing myself to stay in control, though my hands trembled at my sides. "That's what you have to say right now?" She shrugged, utterly unbothered. "I mean, what do you want me to say?" The rage inside me burned hotter. "How about the truth?" She let out a short, breathy laugh, mocking, dismissive, as if my request was absurd. "Oh my God, you sound like one of those overdramatic TV husbands." I stepped forward, my patience hanging by a thread. She didn't flinch, didn't back away, just stood there, watching me with a bored expression, waiting for her next chance to belittle me. "What happened to you?" I asked, my voice quieter this time. That made her scoff. "What happened to me?" "Nothing, Daniel. I just got tired." I repeated the word, tasting its bitterness. "Tired? Tired of what?" She swirled the wine in her glass, her gaze fixated on it rather than me. "Tired of feeling like I'm married to a stranger." I almost laughed at the audacity of it. "Oh, that's rich. You're the one sneaking around with my best friend, and I'm the stranger." Her expression shifted, no longer smug, just cold. "Yeah, because you're never here, Daniel. You're always working, always busy, always somewhere else. And I got sick of waiting." Something inside me cracked. I had worked tirelessly for her, for us. The long hours, the exhaustion, the sacrifices. I had done it all to give her a comfortable life. And now she was telling me that was the problem? That she felt neglected while living in a house I paid for, drinking wine I bought, all while sneaking around with Jason? A bitter laugh escaped me. "So your solution to feeling lonely was being with Jason?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, grow up. We didn't—" She stopped herself, but it was too late. I narrowed my eyes. "Didn't?" Her silence was telling. She didn't cover her slip-up fast enough. "You said didn't," I pointed out. Not wouldn't, not never, just didn't. So what does that mean, Emily? That it just hasn't happened yet. Her jaw tightened. I nodded slowly. Right. Got it. She shifted her weight. Uncomfortable now. Look, I wanted independence. Okay? I wanted space. I wanted to feel like myself again. But, of course, you wouldn't understand that. I just stared at her, taking in the sheer entitlement dripping from her words. Then I did the one thing she didn't expect. I dropped my keys onto the counter and turned toward the door. Her smirk faltered. Where are you going? I pulled the door open, my voice steady. I'm giving you exactly what you wanted. Her brows knitted together in confusion. What? I didn't answer. I didn't even look back. I just walked out, slamming the door behind me. I barely made it to my car before I heard it, her voice calling after me. Now there was something different in it. Panic. Daniel, wait. I didn't wait. I drove. No destination. No plan. Just miles of pavement stretching endlessly beneath my tires as I tried to process the madness of what had just happened. Emily had cheated. Or at the very least, had been about to. With Jason. Jason, the friend I had trusted for years. Jason, who had stood beside me on my wedding day, who had given a heartfelt speech about loyalty and brotherhood only to turn around and betray me in the worst way. The weight of it all sat heavy in my chest, suffocating. Every memory of them together, their inside jokes, their casual touches, the subtle moments I had brushed off, replayed in my mind like a cruel highlight reel. Signs I had been too blind to see. And then there was her. That smug, arrogant smirk. That was what haunted me the most. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. If anything, she was irritated that I had caught her. My hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. I should go home. No. I couldn't. That wasn't home anymore. The house had ceased to feel like a home. It was just a space where a woman I no longer recognized lay in a bed I paid for. The air inside felt suffocating, my thoughts tangled in frustration. I needed a break. I needed clarity. More than anything, I needed a drink. So I pulled into the first bar I came across. It was nearly empty, a dimly lit, quiet dive where no one looked twice or asked questions. Just what I needed. I slid onto a bar stool, ordered a whiskey neat, and took a long, burning sip. Halfway through the glass, my phone vibrated against the counter. Emily. Her name flashed on the screen. My thumb hovered over the answer button. A part of me wanted to pick up. Another part wanted to let it ring, pretend she didn't exist. And then there was the part that wanted to drive straight back home, force her to say it all again, to see the guilt, the discomfort in her eyes. The call ended, but almost immediately another came through. And another. Exhaling sharply, I set the phone down and let it vibrate until it finally stopped. Minutes passed. My second drink arrived. Another notification lit up the screen, not a call this time. Jason, man, we need to talk. A dry chuckle escaped me. We? There was no we anymore. Another message. Jason, it's not what you think. I finally picked up my phone and, for the first time that night, responded. Me, oh? You weren't standing half-dressed in my bathroom? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Jason, look, I messed up. I know I did. But you don't understand the whole situation. My jaw tightened until it ached. Me, you were in my house, Jason. With my wife. How exactly do you expect this to play out? More dots. Then, Jason, she told me you guys were on a break. I froze. A break? My grip on the phone tightened as I reread the words, my pulse hammering. Me, a break? Jason, yeah. She said things weren't working out, that you two were separating. She told me it was mutual. Mutual. The word echoed in my head, growing louder with every passing second. My fingers curled around my glass and I forced myself to set it down before I shattered it. This wasn't just betrayal. Emily hadn't simply cheated, she had rewritten the past. She had carefully crafted a version of events where she was the victim, where I was the absent, detached husband. She had laid the groundwork so that when the truth inevitably surfaced, she could twist the narrative, make me look like the irrational one. I sat there, every interaction from the past few months flashing through my mind. Had this always been the plan? Had she been intentionally creating distance, making sure I looked like the one who had let the marriage fall apart? My hands trembled with barely contained rage. I couldn't stay here. I had to act. So I called her. She answered immediately. Daniel. I cut her off. We're on a break? Silence. Then a carefully measured response. Who told you that? My grip on the phone tightened. That's not true. I would never say that. Just who told you? A hollow, humorless chuckle left my lips. So it's true. Daniel, save it. My keys were already in my hand, my heart hammering in my chest. If that's the story you're going with, Emily, let's make it real. We're on a break? Fine. Now we actually are. I ended the call before she could respond. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt certain of my next move. Emily wanted space. I'd give her space. But she wasn't going to like what came next. I drove. But not home. Not to her. That wasn't home anymore. A house where my wife rewrote our past to justify her betrayal? That wasn't home. A place where my so-called best friend stood half-dressed in my bathroom while she watched with a smirk? That wasn't home either. I wasn't going to let her dictate this story. Instead, I drove to the one place where I knew I could think clearly. Ryan's house. When my brother opened the door, dressed in sweatpants and wearing a confused expression, he blinked at me. Dude, what the hell are you doing here? I stepped past him without hesitation, sinking onto his couch. Emily's cheating on me. He stared. Come again. Dragging a hand down my face, I repeated it. Emily. Jason. In my house. In my bathroom. His expression darkened. You're joking. Wish I was. For a moment he simply looked at me. Then he exhaled sharply, shaking his head as he turned toward the kitchen. I'm getting the whiskey. Minutes later, 2 glasses sat on the table between us. I grabbed mine, taking a long, steadying drink. Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Start from the beginning. And so I did. I told him everything. The scent of unfamiliar perfume that lingered in our home, the secrecy, the way she made me feel insane for questioning it. I described walking in on them, Jason's feeble excuses, Emily's complete lack of remorse. And then I told him about the message. The moment Jason revealed the real betrayal. She told him we were on a break. I said, my voice taut with anger. Ryan's head snapped up. What? She planned this. I continued. She fed him a story, set everything up so that when I found out, she could twist the whole situation. Make it look like I was the one being unreasonable. Ryan's nostrils flared, his jaw tightening. That manipulative little... He cut himself off, exhaling sharply. All right, what's the plan? The plan. I should have been breaking down, drowning in grief or rage. But I wasn't. My mind was sharper than ever, my thoughts focused. If Emily wanted to play this like a game, then I'd play. Pulling out my phone, I scrolled through my contacts. Ryan frowned. Who are you calling? I smirked. Our lawyer. Ryan sat back, nodding in approval. That was fast. The phone rang. As soon as the call connected, I didn't hesitate. Hey Mike, I need to file for divorce. Silence stretched on the other end, followed by a simple response. Say less. Without another word, I ended the call and turned to Ryan. Step 1 is done. I'm not pleading. I'm not fighting for someone who tossed me aside. She wanted independence. She's about to get exactly that. Ryan gave me an approving nod. And step 2, I took a deep breath. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of person she really is. A grin spread across Ryan's face. I like step 2. So did I. Emily had spent too long thinking she was in control, that she could manipulate the truth and come out unscathed. But she was about to learn exactly what happens when someone is pushed too far. The next morning, I woke up with a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. Clarity. No more overanalyzing, no more questioning whether my reactions were justified. Emily had made her decisions, and now she was going to live with them. I reached for my phone, half expecting to see a flood of missed calls and messages. Instead, there was only one text. Emily, we need to talk. I almost laughed at how predictable she was. Stretching, I took my time getting out of bed, feeling lighter than I had in months. In the kitchen, Ryan was already up, frying bacon. He glanced at me and smirked. You look like a guy who just walked away from an explosion, leaving his ex in the fire. I poured myself some coffee. Not yet, I said. But it's coming. Ryan slid a plate of food across the counter. So, what's next? I glanced at my phone again, rereading Emily's message. I could practically hear her voice. Calm, measured. like she still believed she had control, like she thought she could spin the situation in her favor. A slow smile crept onto my face. "Oh, I'll talk to her," I said. "I just don't think she's going to like what I have to say." An hour later, I was back at the house. I didn't bother knocking. This was still my home, and I wasn't about to ask permission to enter. Emily sat on the couch, legs crossed, looking as composed as ever, except for the wine glass in her hand. 10 in the morning. She arched an eyebrow. "So, you finally decided to stop ignoring me?" I remained standing, hands in my pockets. "You said you wanted to talk. Go ahead." She let out a sigh, like I was the one being unreasonable. "I don't understand why you're acting this way, Daniel. We've both been unhappy for a long time. You know that." Tilting my head, I studied her. "Unhappy? Sure. But I wasn't the one sneaking around and rewriting history to justify it." Her lips pressed into a tight line. "I didn't rewrite anything." Wordlessly, I pulled out my phone and opened Jason's messages, then turned the screen toward her. He told me everything. For the first time, I saw something flicker across her face. Annoyance, maybe even regret. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a softened, almost patronizing tone. "Daniel, I never meant to hurt you," I scoffed. "Cut the act." Her mouth snapped shut as I took a step forward. "You didn't mean to hurt me?" I said, voice low and steady. "Then what exactly did you mean to do, Emily? Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like you wanted me to find out this way." She blinked, caught off guard. I shook my head. "No tears? No apologies? You really thought I'd lose my mind, didn't you? That I'd start yelling, punching walls, proving you right? You wanted me to look like the unstable, neglectful husband so you could play the victim." She shot to her feet, her expression twisting. "That's insane." I smirked. "Is it?" Her jaw tightened. "I don't have to listen to this." "No, you don't," I said coolly. "Because I'm done talking." Reaching into my jacket, I pulled out a folder and tossed it onto the coffee table. Divorce papers. Emily's entire body tensed. She stared at them like they might detonate at any moment. "I already filed this morning," I told her, cutting off whatever excuse she was about to make. "You wanted independence, Emily? Now you have it." Her fingers tightened around the wine glass. "You're not even going to fight for this?" A dry laugh escaped me. "Fight for what? A marriage built on lies? A woman who doesn't respect me? No, Emily. You made your decision. I'm just giving you exactly what you asked for." She stood frozen, her lips parted slightly, as if torn between anger and desperation. And for the first time, I saw something new in her expression. Fear. This wasn't the reaction she had planned for. She wanted chaos. She wanted drama. But I wasn't playing her game anymore. Emily didn't move, just stared at the divorce papers like she couldn't comprehend them, like real consequences had never crossed her mind. Her voice was softer when she finally spoke. "Daniel, can we just talk?" I almost laughed. "Talk?" I echoed. Crossing my arms, I met her gaze. "We're talking. You're free now, Emily. Free to be with Jason. Isn't that what you wanted?" She flinched, and for just a second, just a fraction of a second, there was something like panic in her eyes. "I never said that," she muttered. I shrugged. "You didn't have to. Your actions said it all." Her breath came out sharp, and she ran a hand through her hair. "I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. It was a mistake." I tilted my head. "Which part? Lying to Jason about our break? Sneaking him into our house? Hiding him in the bathroom like this was some ridiculous sitcom? Or smirking in my face when I caught you?" Her nostrils flared. "You're twisting this." I took another step forward. "No, I'm not." She glared at me, her expression twisting with frustration. "You turned everything around," she accused. "You twisted it all." But now that I wasn't shouting, wasn't breaking apart, now that I was simply done. She didn't like that, did she? She parted her lips to speak, but I wasn't ready to let her. This was about control, wasn't it? I said, my voice steady. "You wanted to be the one pulling the strings. You wanted Jason on the side while keeping me within reach." just in case. But here's the thing. I tapped the stack of divorce papers sitting in front of me. This is something you don't get to manipulate. Not anymore. Her breath caught, and at that moment, I saw it hit her. She had assumed she could stretch this out, twist the narrative, make me question myself. Make me believe I was the one at fault. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I should have fought harder for her. But instead of playing her game, I was walking away. And that terrified her. She sank onto the couch, pressing her fingers against her temples as if she was the one suffering. "You're being so cold," she murmured. A hollow chuckle escaped me. "No, Emily. I was warm. For years I was warm. I gave you everything: trust, love, loyalty. And you set it all on fire." Her eyes snapped up to meet mine, desperation flickering behind them. "So that's it?" she asked, her voice almost a plea. "You're just going to throw everything away?" I inhaled deeply, steadying myself before delivering the words that would close this chapter for good. "I'm not throwing anything away," I told her, my voice firm. "You did." And with that, I turned and walked out the door. I braced myself for an explosion. A scream, a thrown object, a desperate attempt to pull me back in. But none of that came. She simply sat there, silent, as I left her behind. But I wasn't finished. Jason had no idea what was coming. I didn't drive far, just across town to an apartment I knew well. Jason's. He had no clue I was on my way, which was exactly how I wanted it. Pulling into the lot, I exhaled slowly, my pulse steady, my hands still. Unlike Emily, Jason didn't deserve my anger. He deserved something else entirely. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Finally, I heard hesitant footsteps, a brief pause, then the door cracked open. There he was, the man I had once called a friend, staring at me like a guilty child caught in the act. His eyes widened. "Dan," I smiled. "Hey, buddy." Jason swallowed hard, his posture stiff. "Look, man, Relax." I leaned against the doorframe, my expression calm. "I'm not here to break my knuckles on your face. You're not worth it." He winced but stepped aside, allowing me in. His apartment looked exactly as I expected. Half-packed boxes scattered around, clothes draped over furniture, an empty pizza box abandoned on the coffee table. Jason was never great at keeping things tidy, but something about the disarray made me smirk. "You packing?" I asked, nodding toward the boxes. He cleared his throat. Yeah, moving out of state soon. New job." I raised an eyebrow. "That so?" He nodded but avoided my gaze. Settling onto his couch, I stretched out, making myself comfortable. "Good. You should leave." Jason tensed. "Dan, you should leave," I repeated, my voice carrying the weight of finality. "Because you burned every bridge you had here. I don't want to see you. Ryan doesn't want to see you. No one does." He sighed heavily, rubbing the back of his neck. "I never meant for this to happen." I laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, you never meant to sneak around with my wife? Never meant to lie straight to my face while standing in my house? Never meant to take her word when she told you we were on a break, and just go along with it?" Jason swallowed, eyes darting away. I was stupid. I should have asked you. I should have. You should have been a better friend." I cut in, my voice cold. "But you weren't. And now, you're nothing to me." Jason finally looked up, something desperate flickering across his face. "Dan, man, come on. We've been friends for years." I leaned forward, my tone unyielding. "Not anymore." Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Jason's mouth opened as if he wanted to keep pleading, but I was already on my feet. I walked to the door, pausing just long enough for one last parting shot. "Oh, and one more thing." He hesitated. "What?" I turned, meeting his eyes with a stare that left no room for doubt. "Emily never cared about you." Jason flinched as if I had physically struck him. "What?" I shrugged, my voice laced with certainty. "She used you, lied to you, and now that she knows I'm divorcing her, she's panicking." A smirk tugged at my lips. "You know what that means, right?" Jason's face crumpled, realization dawning far too late. He had been nothing more than a disposable pawn. I gave him a slow, pitying nod. She's going to run back to me. His expression shattered completely. I smiled. Enjoy the rest of your life, Jason. And with that, I walked out. Emily had believed she was in control. Jason had convinced himself he had a future with her. They were both about to learn just how wrong they were. I didn't have to wait long. Less than 24 hours after I handed over the divorce papers, Emily's name lit up my phone. I ignored it. She called again. Ignored. Then came the texts. Emily, can we talk? Emily, I think we made a mistake. Emily, Daniel, please. Oh, how the tables had turned. Reclining on Ryan's couch, I watched as the messages rolled in, each one more desperate than the last. Ryan peered over my shoulder, whistling low. Man, she's really reaching, huh? I smirked. She's predictable. She had expected me to chase her, to lose my temper, to fight for her love. She thought I would beg, demand answers, or scream about how much she had hurt me. But now that I had cut her off, she had no idea what to do. Ryan grinned. So, you gonna answer? I chuckled, tossing my phone onto the couch beside me. Not yet, I said, leaning back with satisfaction. I was going to let her stew. She had chosen her path, and now she had to sit in the ruins of the life she had burned to the ground. I left her to it, but by the following evening, she appeared at my doorstep. A knock, firm, insistent, laced with desperation. Ryan arched an eyebrow. Do you want me to take care of this? He asked. I shook my head. No. I want to see how far she's willing to go. When I opened the door, there stood Emily. Her eyes were red, rimmed with exhaustion and something else. A mix of sadness and determination. She had that look, the one of someone who believed they could still fix what was broken. Daniel, she breathed, saying my name as if it were a plea. Leaning against the doorframe, I crossed my arms. Emily. She swallowed hard before speaking again. Can we talk? Can I come in? For a moment I considered her request. Then, without a word, I stepped aside. She entered cautiously, uncertain as if questioning whether she still had a place here. She didn't. I shut the door behind her and turned to face her. You have 5 minutes. Her lips quivered for a brief second, but she quickly regained composure. I don't want this, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I don't want a divorce. I nearly laughed at the absurdity of it. Is that so? She nodded eagerly, stepping forward. I was confused, Daniel. I made a mistake. I thought I needed space, but when you left, I realized I don't. I need you. There it was, the shift. The panic. She never truly wanted me. She wanted the stability I provided. The house. The financial security. The control. And now, faced with the stark loneliness she had brought upon herself, she was scrambling to undo it. Tilting my head, I spoke slowly. You insisted on independence, but the moment I left, you begged me to return. A sharp intake of breath. That one hit her. She stepped closer, reaching for my hand. I was wrong, Daniel. I love you. We can fix this. I allowed her fingers to touch mine for exactly 2 seconds before pulling away. Her face fell. You don't love me anymore? Meeting her gaze, I didn't hesitate. Not enough to be a fool for you. A broken sound escaped her lips. So that's it? I nodded. That's it. Her eyes blinked rapidly, struggling to hold back tears. For a brief moment, something flickered inside me, pity maybe. But then I remembered. I remembered the smirk, the lies, and Jason standing in my bathroom, half-dressed, as if he belonged there. No. She had made her bed. Without another word, I walked to the door and opened it. Goodbye, Emily. She hesitated, lingering for one last moment, as if searching for the words that could change my mind. Nothing came. Finally, she stepped outside, turning back once with a last, pleading glance. I didn't waver. Then she walked away. As the door shut behind her, I felt nothing but relief. No explosion. No heated argument. No dramatic confessions. Just finality. I exhaled, letting it sink in. Ryan, leaning against the kitchen counter, crossed his arms. That was satisfying. A smirk tugged at my lips. It was. He pulled a beer from the fridge and tossed one to me. So, what now? Good question. For months, my life had revolved around Emily, deciphering her actions, uncovering her deceptions, trying to separate truth from manipulation. But now? I cracked open the beer. Now I move on. And I meant it. Moving on didn't mean finding someone new. It wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about reclaiming my freedom. Emily tried calling a few more times, but I never answered. Eventually, the calls stopped. I assumed she realized she had nothing left to bargain with. Maybe she turned to Jason for comfort only to discover that she was just as replaceable to him as he had been to me. Good. Let them drown in the mess they created. The divorce was clean. Mike, my lawyer, made sure of that. The prenuptial agreement left no room for negotiation. Emily walked away with exactly what she had entered with. Nothing. She attempted to fight it, to manipulate me into offering her something. I shut that down immediately. Actions have consequences, I told her. This is yours. She signed the papers. And just like that, it was over. As for Jason, he disappeared. Left town within the month, not even attempting to salvage what was left of his reputation. No one wanted anything to do with him, not Ryan, not me, not any of our mutual friends. Last I heard, he relocated to another city, probably hoping to erase the past and start over. Coward. And me? I rebuilt. I kept my job, kept my house, but changed everything else. New paint covered the walls. The furniture she had chosen was gone. I erased every trace of the life we had shared because that life had been a lie. And it felt incredible. 1 year later, I found myself at a small cafe, seated outside, absorbed in a book, enjoying the quiet. No drama. No deceit. Just peace. Then, a familiar voice. Daniel. I looked up. There she was. Emily. She looked different. Not better. Not worse. Just older. The kind of weariness that settles in when life has carved its lessons into you the hard way. I waited. She hesitated before offering a small smile. You look good. I took a sip of my coffee. I know. Her smile faltered. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't reply. She exhaled, gathering her thoughts. I made mistakes. I hurt you. And I regret it. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she didn't. It didn't matter. I nodded once. Okay. She gazed at me for what felt like an eternity, as if expecting something, though there was nothing more to be said. At last, she let out a quiet sigh and softly murmured, "Take care, Daniel," before turning and walking away. I watched her leave, feeling no resentment, no sorrow, and no sense of triumph. Just a quiet sense of finality. And as I sat there, bathed in the warmth of the sunlight, a realization settled over me. There was no victory, no defeat, only the simple truth that I had reclaimed my life. And that in the end was enough.